Hello, I'm Santier, and welcome to the final part of the Mesmer skill review part of the skill review project. We're going to be covering no attribute and PvE-only skills in this video. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the PvE-only skills. They're already on my skill bar, so I'm just going to look at them there rather than scroll to them. So the first one is the Sun Spear title track skill called Cry of Pain. Hopefully you can read that okay over all of the other stuff. I mean, I guess I can just go to it right here. So Cry of Pain is 10 energy, 1/4 second cast time, 15-second recharge. It is a spell. Interrupts target foe's skill. If that foe was suffering from a Mesmer hex, that foe and all foes in the area take 50 damage and have 5 health degeneration for 10 seconds. There's a really important misconception that can happen with this one. The interrupting a foe's skill is a thing that this does, but, and this is really important, that is not the condition for doing the damage. If they are suffering from a Mesmer hex, that is the condition for doing the damage. So you target a foe. If they're casting a skill, you'll interrupt it. Or if they're performing some skill, you will interrupt it. But if they have a Mesmer hex on them, then in an area of effect, okay, the large area in the area, that's the biggest area of effect size until you hit earshot, right? So adjacent, nearby, in the area. So this is huge. Those foes in that area will take 50 damage and have 5 health degeneration for 10 seconds. That health degeneration is a spell, not a hex, so it can't be removed. There's no way to remove that health degen. So they're going to take that additional 100 damage from that. So this deals 150 damage in a fairly large area of effect, and it will interrupt something. However, you do need to be running with Mesmer hexes. If you're not using Mesmer hexes, this becomes way weaker. I'm going to give this a 4 because the effect here on Cry of Pain is extremely strong, but you do have to make sure that you're using Mesmer hexes in order to be able to get it. That's not a high threshold. I'm not always automatically going to bring this skill on my bar, but I probably should most of the time. The other one is actually Ether Nightmare. I'm just going to go ahead and scroll to it, I guess. This is the Friend of the Faction title track linked skill. So Ether Nightmare is a hex spell. It is 10 energy, 3-second cast time, 25-second recharge, so the stats are pretty hefty. Target foe loses 8 energy. For each point of energy lost in this way, that foe and all foes in the area, so again, very large area of effect, suffer -1 health degeneration for 10 seconds. So this one's okay. I'm going to give this one a 3. Let me kind of walk you through it a little bit. So it is a very large area of effect, right? In the area is a huge area of effect. It will hex all of those foes, and the initial foe that you target will lose up to 8 energy. If they don't have 8 energy to lose, obviously they can't lose all that. But for each point of energy that they lose through this skill, they will have 1 health degeneration for 10 seconds. So let's say they lost all 8. Then they will have 8 health degeneration for 10 seconds. If they lost 6 energy, it'll be 6 health degeneration for 10 seconds. The duration, as far as I understand it, will be constant. So, the stacking is on the amount of health that they lose. This is it has a long recharge, it has a long cast time, although obviously fast casting helps with both of those because this is a Mesmer spell. The effect is quite potent. So I talked about Conjure Nightmare, right? This is basically a Conjure Nightmare that has a significantly longer recharge and cast time, but costs 5 less energy and affects all foes in a massive area of effect. This is probably worth bringing some percentage of the time, but keep in mind, A, only players can bring it, and B, the recharge on it is quite long. So it's solid, but I think that there are other options that could be better. If you do get the full 8 energy degen, or 8 health regen, which you should probably get, that's going to be 160 damage to all of those foes. So that's solid, but Cry of Pain is definitely the superior of the two by quite a wide margin. It's not like the Warrior that had 2 really, really, really good PvE-only skills. So I do like the art on Ether Nightmare, or at least this version of it. Okay, so let's go into the no attribute skills. Now, one of the things that's going to be a little confusing is I am currently part Assassin, so let's drop that off so that way. Assassin has a very similar color scheme. Mesmer skills are purple. Assassin skills are also kind of purple. Mesmer leans more towards blues, though, and Assassin leans more towards reds, but they were kind of confused on my bar. So just to make it a little, or in my list, so just to make it a little clearer, I'm gonna do that. Okay, so Arcane Echo. 15 energy, 2-second cast time, 20-second recharge. That's not quite accurate. We'll get to that why in a moment. It is an enchantment spell. If you cast a spell in the next 20 seconds, Arcane Echo is replaced with that spell for 20 seconds. Arcane Echo ends prematurely if you use a non-spell skill. So you have to use a spell or it ends, but the next spell you use, Arcane Echo becomes a copy of it. So the way that this works is you apply Arcane Echo, then you use a spell. Arcane Echo becomes a copy of that spell for 20 seconds. When that ends, Arcane Echo goes into recharge for another 20 seconds. So that 20-second recharge is a little bit of a misnomer. This is a 2. It's powerful, but it's a build around. You have to be intentionally building around wanting to copy your skill like that. It is kind of expensive as well at 15 energy. You can use it as any profession that casts spells, because this is no attribute, obviously. So keep in mind the no attribute nature of all of these. Arcane Echo was traditionally used with Necromancers for echoing Spiteful Spirit, which is a powerful elite that they have. We'll talk about it when we talk about Necromancer, or in the Necromancer Curses video. It was also used with the Elementalist, so like Meteor Shower was a popular one to Arcane Echo. Any spell where having a second copy on your bar some percentage of the time is useful with Arcane Echo. This is kind of another way of getting a second cast of some skills that doesn't require an elite as well. There are elites like Glyph of Renewal that Elementalist had that allow you to be able to get a second cast. This is a way of doing it that doesn't require an elite, but obviously it does have a huge energy cost attached to it. It's a little clunky. But, you know, this is a powerful effect. You can find ways to make use of it. So it's certainly worth bringing. You do want to use it fairly intentionally. I don't know that the AI is going to use it very smartly, so I wouldn't generally use it with the AI. Arcane Mimicry. This is a funky one. So it's 15 energy, 2-second cast time, 60-second recharge spell. For 20 seconds, Arcane Mimicry becomes the non-form elite skill from target other ally. Okay, so there's a phrase in there, non-form. That is specifically referring to dervish skills. So just to give you some context, let me slap a... Do I not have a dervish hero? Funky. Are any of my heroes already /dervish? Because that would be convenient. No. Okay. I don't know why this character does not have any dervish allies, but here we are. I'll just show you the skills. I can't show you them properly, but under Mysticism, there are these skills. Avatar of Balthazar, Dwayna, Granth, Listen, Landry. We'll talk about them when we talk about dervish. Some of my non-review Guild Wars 1 videos, I've talked about them a little bit. These are all elite forms. They are powerful skills that temporarily turn you into a manifestation of a deity and give you a bunch of benefits related to that. So, Arcane Mimicry... Excuse me, I need to scroll down further. Arcane Mimicry does not copy those. It can become any other skill, but it will not become those. So that's just to try to prevent abuse, because you could theoretically keep them up indefinitely or something, I guess. I don't know. But the forms are known to be very powerful, and honestly, like, you'd have to be a dervish to want to do that anyway. But here we are. So for 20 seconds, so clearly, given recharges and stuff, you want to be grabbing an elite that has a very long duration or is very useful to kind of use right away or whatever. So in general, Arcane Mimicry is, well, first of all, it's a 2. It's a 2 with an asterisk, though. You have to be building your party in such a way that Arcane Mimicry is specifically to go grab an elite from one of your allies that you want to use. Now, keep in mind, you have your elite at the same time, so you can potentially stack elites if you want. I guess Arcane Mimicry could do really silly stuff with Arcane Echo as well. You're putting a lot of energy into doing something very funky. But I could see you running Arcane Mimicry on, for example, an Elementalist to be able to grab your fellow Elementalist's Elemental Attunement as an example. That's a long-lasting enchantment that would give you a nice benefit to have on at the same time as some other, something like Searing Flames or some other elite. So there are definitely uses where you can make use of this. This will copy an elite skill as well, so you could grab like Eviscerate if you wanted to. That'd be a little awkward, but you could. Keep in mind something like an Adrenaline skill, you do have to build up Adrenaline. You only get so long with it, so there is that consideration. Maintained enchantments from the Monk line are a really good choice, just because there's something that you can apply to you. Unyielding Aura is a very strong option if you're a monk. We'll talk about Unyielding Aura specifically at another time, but it's a maintained enchantment, so maintained enchantments are enchantments that you apply to yourself that cost a pip of energy regeneration and last indefinitely, and then you can cancel. So something like that is really useful with Arcane Mimicry, because you can grab it, apply it to yourself, and basically make use of 2 elites at the same time. So that's a strong possible consideration. But in general, like, you have to find specific situations in which doing this is going to be very useful, and kind of worth the skill slot. So that's going to be very specific circumstances. You can do powerful and interesting things with Arcane Mimicry, and of the skills that like copy other skills, Arcane Mimicry is probably the best one, just because it's copying it from an ally and it's reliable and you know what you're getting from it. But and so you can build around it, but you definitely have to build around it. Echo. Echo is 5 energy, 1 second cast time, 10-second recharge for an elite enchantment spell. For 30 seconds, Echo is replaced with the next skill you use. Echo acts as a skill for 30 seconds. So this is an elite version of Arcane Echo that works with any skill. It does take your elite slot. It was also used, so you'd often bring Echo and Arcane Echo to make like 3 copies of Meteor Showers so you can drop a bunch of Meteor Showers. That was the thing that was done. When you did that, you had to like intentionally apply things in specific orders. Otherwise, you'd like Arcane Echo Echo or make Echo a copy of Arcane Echo. It would be a gigantic mess. So you'd want to apply, like, say, Arcane Echo, cast Meteor Shower, apply Echo, cast Meteor Shower, and then cast another Meteor Shower. That build fell out of favor as soon as they introduced AI scattering, so it was only really good for, I don't know, 8 months or something, but, you know, it's sweet while it lasted. This is a build around me. Again, you can copy any skill, but you have to figure out what skill would you rather have 2 copies of than an elite. And, you know, one that's not indefinite. This could be really cool with something like Cyclone Axe, because then you could be like Cyclone Axe, Cyclone Axe, Cyclone Axe, Cyclone Axe, and stuff like that. But this is super gimmicky. This is another 2. This is another, like, you're building around this sort of skill. It's not like, if I'm just looking for an elite to slot into my build, first of all, something weird's going on. But second of all, like, Echo is not, like, I'm not going to just throw that into a bar. So it's got good uses, but Epidemic. Epidemic is 5 energy, quarter-second cast time, 5-second recharge spell. Spread all negative conditions. I don't know why it says negative, because all conditions are, but I guess maybe they're leaving the design space open. And the remaining durations from target foe to all foes adjacent to your target. So this is like a non-elite extend conditions. This is really useful in specific builds where you might be stacking conditions. It's kind of a nice thing to have along. I like using this with something like Broadhead Arrow or Stunning... Is it Stunning Spear? Anyway, there's a Paragon Elite that applies Dazed as well. Anything that's basically a single target applying Dazed, I like to use Epidemic to spread it around. So this is really sweet. I'm going to give this a 4. It's a 4 with an asterisk. It's more like a Super 2. I don't think it's quite a... It is a skill that I more actively bring than like a 3 would be or like a 2 would be, because they're like, I think it's a little bit more broadly useful, but it is a little bit narrow, so just keep that in mind. Expel Hexes. 5 energy, 1 second cast time, 8-second recharge, elite spell, remove up to 2 hexes from target ally. This is a 2. A lot of these are going to be 2s just because they don't require attributes. The reason why this is a 2 is because remove hex is a thing. So let's compare them. Remove hex is non-attribute. It does require you to be monk. It removes a hex from target ally and has the exact same casting stats, so 5 energy, 1 second cast time, 8 second recharge, as Expel Hexes. Here's the thing, though. Expel Hexes takes up my elite slot. It can remove 2 hexes, but often you're not, like... It's going to require very specific areas that you're going to have 2 hexes on an ally. And so... Expel Hexes is... It's taking up your elite slot for very marginal benefit over remove hex. So it's just not doing enough more for me to bring it. So it's going to require very specific circumstances for me to consider Expel Hexes. That said, it's one of the stronger... It's a very strong and solid option for dealing with an area that has a lot of hexes, just because it does remove 2 hexes and has a fairly quick recharge. Bonus points that this recharge is sped up by fast casting because it is a Mesmer spell. So if you are going into an area where you're going to get drowned in hexes that you need to remove, Expel Hexes is an option. Questionable one in general, but that circumstance might exist, but it's not very common. Yeah, let's move on. Hypochondria. This is 5 energy, 1 second cast time, 7 second recharge. It is a spell. It transfers all conditions from all foes in the area, so pretty big area effect, to target foe. So it does move them off of them. This plays really well with something like Epidemic, even better with Fevered Dreams in a Fragility build. I'm basically never bringing this without it being a Fragility build. So I'm going to give it a 2. I think it's a build around. Yeah, you really need to be making a lot of conditions happen and being used this to like integrate them so you can respread them through something like Epidemic, Extend Conditions, or Fevered Dreams in particular. So I like Hypochondria in those sorts of situations, but otherwise it's not worth using. Lyssa's, like, this is a really good skill to have, though, for those sorts of builds. It's a nice skill to be able to have to slot in. I mentioned this already in some of the illusion magic stuff, but having Hypochondria, or like having these sorts of skills that they're not really that useful on their own, but they have really good synergies, those are the sorts of skills that you want to have be the bulk of your skills, because that creates more diversity in builds, and that creates a more intricate web of overall power. So something like Hypochondria is a skill that's great to have, because by itself it's kind of meh. It doesn't really do all that much that you're interested in. But in concert with other skills, it does something you're very interested in. And so having those sorts of things that are like, not just a generic, oh, this is a powerful skill, but rather like, this is amazing in this situation and terrible in other situations, and I can control that situation that's going to come up if I'm wanting it. Those sorts of skills are really good and important to have. So Hypochondria is a fantastic skill to have in the game. And honestly, having a lot of your skills be, this is really powerful in a build around me situation, is something that I think you're going to want to have a good bit of the time in a game like this, because it forces you to kind of analyze what approach you're taking to doing things. So, and this is the only skill that does this effect. So, as far as I know off the top of my head, so it's definitely an effect that you want to consider. So, Lyssa's Balance. So this is 5 energy, 1 second cast time, 15 second recharge. Spell, target foe loses 1 enchantment. If you have more enchantments than target foe, this skill has no effect. This is a 1. This is a hard 1. 15 seconds is not a special cast time. If this was like 5 seconds, it would actually probably be like a 3. But the thing is, you have to have fewer enchantments. So if you have more enchantments than target foe, this skill has no effect. So if you have the same number of enchantments or fewer enchantments, then this works. But then it removes an enchantment. Here's the problem. Right below it is Mirror of Disenchantment. Also 5 energy, also 1 second cast time, also 15 second recharge, also a Mesmer spell. However, Mirror of Disenchantment removes 1 enchantment from target foe, full stop, no conditions, and it also, all of that foe's party members also lose that same enchantment. Mirror of Disenchantment is strictly better than Lyssa's Balance. There is no situation in which I would not pick Mirror of Disenchantment over Lyssa's Balance. They have the exact same set of stats. Lyssa's Balance will conditionally move an enchantment from one foe. Mirror of Disenchantment unconditionally removes an enchantment from a foe, and will also remove that enchantment from all of that foe's party members. Now keep in mind, party members is not the same thing as allies, so it spreads a bit differently, and the way that the AI has party members could be a little wonky. But this is strictly better than Lyssa's Balances in that it always at least removes 1 enchantment. and it can remove more. This is a 4 for me. This is an enchantment removal choice that I remember and I go to. The recharge is pretty good for enchantment removal that's non-elite. Its effect is reliable. It does not require me to spend any attribute points to be able to make use of it, and it can clear up a bunch of the same enchantment if it's a problematic enchantment like Aegis or critical defenses or something like that. So always, like, this is solid enchantment removal. Frankly, Lissa's balance is just cannot compare. And even some that require attributes, like, don't quite step up. So very solid, very effective enchantment removal. Which brings us to Shatter Storm. So first, this might look really exciting. So Shatter Storm is 10 energy, 1 second cast time, elite spell. Target foe loses all enchantments. For each enchantment removed this way, Shatter Storm is disabled for an additional 7 seconds. Okay. Real talk time. The way this works is, say they have 1 enchantment, you remove it, it recharges in 7 seconds. Fine. They have 2, it recharges in 14. They have 3, it recharges in 21. This is meant to kind of mass strip enchantments from a target. I will not use this skill. This is a 1. Here's the reason why it's a 1. If I want to remove 1 enchantment, it's fine, but it takes up my elite slot. I have other options for removing 1 enchantment. If I want to remove 2 enchantments, this will do it, but it's going to cost me something. Here's the problem. The problem, if I just swap this over to Necromancer, is up here in Curses. Chillblains can remove multiple enchantments. There's some other Necromancer stuff that can remove multiple enchantments. And most notably, there is R is lower. Rend enchantments right here. Remove, this is without any spec, right? Remove 5 enchantments from target foe. For each monk enchantment removed, you lose a chunk of health. So obviously there's some downsides. But the thing is, without any spec in Curses, this is straight up just removing 5 enchantments for 5 energy, non-elite, 20-second recharge. Shatter Storm, obviously I have to scroll down to it, but Shatter Storm can remove, any number of enchantments. It's rare that, honestly, removing 5 enchantments is a lot. Like, having 5 enchantments on somebody is already a lot. This is... So, if you wanted to have a spell specifically to counter enchantments, this is not the way to design it. It's very similar to Withdraw Hexes that we'll talk about with the Monk. If this is supposed to counter somebody stacking enchantments on themselves, you are not making this an effective skill for dealing with that, because of the additional 7-second recharge for each one removed. If they are stacking enchantments where they have 5, 6 enchantments on themselves, and I need to strip them, if I'm removing that many, 35, 42-second recharge, this is not coming back anytime soon. They're going to be able to likely reapply many of their enchantments before this is recharged. So, and the scenario where you need to deal with that is very narrow. The fact that this is an elite really damages it. Like, here's the thing. Shatter Storm's effect can be really strong, but there are non-elite options that have less bad downsides. Taking up your elite slot, costing 10 energy, and disabling itself for a very long period of time for each one removed is just not quite worth it. In terms of enchantment removal, I guess if you're removing 1 enchantment, this becomes kind of okay. But, like, it's just... The additional recharge is just not good. And from a design standpoint, if you want something to counter enchantments, you want it to get better the more enchantments it removes. You want it to... And somehow... So, like, there's another... I mean, I hate to go back to it, but Necromancer Elite, that specifically, Pain of Disenchantment right here. Obviously, this is not a Necromancer. I don't have much spec in it. But look at this one, right? This is also 10 energy, also 1 second cast time. It has a guaranteed 15-second recharge, but this can be spec'd up high enough to remove 2, 3 enchantments, which is probably all that you need. And if it removes an enchantment, it causes area of effect damage. that right there, like, I'm going to bring Pain of Disenchantment over Shatter Storm every time, and I rarely bring Pain of Disenchantment. So it's just a situation where what Shatter Storm is doing is just not good enough, and the problem it's meant to solve, it does so very poorly. So I think it's better than Withdraw Hexes marginally, but it's just not a very good skill, and I don't want to bring it. There are better elite better elite enchantment removal spells out there, and in Mesmer, and what this is trying to do is not commonly a problem, and if it is, there are other options that I'd rather bring, like Rend enchantments. So, yeah. Like, I'd rather bring Rend enchantments on a Mesmer that's going to be able to cast it faster because it's 2-second cast time, if I recall correctly. So, Shatter Storm, prime example of an elite that is utterly failing at its job, in my opinion. And there are better ways to design this sort of skill. If you want something that's there to strip all enchantments, make it be about that. Like, maybe return energy for each enchantment I remove, and give this a set like 12, 15-second recharge or something like that. I don't know. Signet of Disenchantment. 1 second activation time, 15-second recharge. Of course, it's a Signet. It has no energy cost, except it does. You lose all energy, and then target foe loses 1 enchantment. This is a 2. Now, that might seem kind of wonky, but there's a reason for it. First of all, I think that this can slot out well into the Signet build, which doesn't care about its energy. So being able to remove an enchantment can be a nice utility in it. Also, this can work well on something like a Warrior or potentially a Paragon. Paragon has good ways of returning its energy to it, and Warrior doesn't need its energy generally. So Signet of Disenchantment might work really well, particularly on like a Symbolic Strike Warrior that's trying to get additional Signets. This might be a good utility Signet to bring, although you're hard-pressed to not bring Antidote Signet, which require being a Ranger. But this is an option. I'm going to pick Mirror of Disenchantment before this almost every time, but there are some scenarios where I could see Signet of Disenchantment being worth bringing. Costing all of your energy is pretty serious and a huge downside, so like this is not going to get in a lot of the time, but there are occasions where it could show up. So, Signet of Midnight. 2-second activation time, 10-second recharge. Obviously no energy cost because it's an elite Signet. It is elite. You and target touched foe become blinded for 15 seconds. So this is a touch range Signet. You do have to be in melee range. It's useful defensively. 15 seconds of blind is quite long. Of course, there are ways that you can try to make use of this blind on yourself in Necromancer to spread it to enemies, but a lot of the time the AI is just going to heal it from you if you have the ability to do so. This is fine on casters to be defensive and to protect yourself. It's a 2, though. I'm going to be honest. There are better ways to blind enemies. This is... blinding yourself is terrible if you're a melee attacker. So this is just kind of super awkward to use. And there aren't a whole lot of situations in which I want this. It's a powerful effect, but not at elite. That's the problem. And that's really what it comes down to. I can imagine scenarios where you might want to use this. But it's pretty borderline overall. So yeah, I'm not excited to try to use this on anyone. Primarily because it's taking up my elite slot. So give this a 15-second recharge and make it non-elite, and then we're talking. Then it might be usable, but not as an elite. There's too many other things you want. Web of Disruption. 5 energy, a 1/4 second cast time, 15-second recharge, hex spell, interrupt target foe. Cool. For 10 seconds, target foe is hexed with Web of Disruption. When this hex ends, that foe is interrupted again. This is a 4 for me. It is a reliable interrupt for a single target, but it will interrupt anything, including just regular attacking. It only costs 5 energy. 15-second recharge is perfectly reasonable. Also, this combos with the like Shatter Delusions and Drain Delusions, if I'm remembering my skill names correctly. So this is nice on a Mesmer as well because it has additional synergy with that type of build. But it's just a generally fine functional interrupt. Anyone can use this and be happy about it. And yeah, it's perfectly serviceable. I'm not always going to bring it or anything, but I don't mind bringing it, and I'm perfectly happy to use this. So that's going to go ahead and wrap things up. I have covered all of the skills now. So until next time, everyone, which is going to be Ranger, I believe. But until next time, take care. Goodbye. I guess I should wave off. So goodbye.